All right, thanks, guys. Yeah, we'll bring in Danielle Shay, VP of Options at Simpler Trading, to talk a little bit about SoFi, maybe. Danielle, good to see you, as always. Thanks
how's it going?
Fantastic. It's been an eventful day, I guess is the best way to put it. Lots to look at, lots to discuss. Let's jump right into a few things here. We have, it's earnings season, obviously, so the big names still to come. But we get the first of the higher volatility tech FANG names, if you want. Although I saw somebody call them MANG names now because it's Meta, not Facebook. So anyways, doesn't matter. Let's talk about Netflix. Tell us how to approach this from an options trading standpoint and how you're looking at Netflix tonight.
So when you're looking at Netflix, I just think it's so important as far as earnings are concerned because it kicks off the FANGs, right? And actually one of my colleagues, he calls it FANG Man because you got to add Microsoft in there too. So when you're looking at Netflix, it's so critical what this stock does on earnings because if this thing rolls over and tanks, it's going to bring down the rest of tech. So when you look at it and you think, okay, what could I do with this? It's one of the first FANG stocks to come out. You've got a $36 expected move. Let's see, the last 3 quarters, it gapped lower post earnings. So not very promising, right? And right now we're down on support at a $500 price point. I mean, for me, I think it would make more sense to sell calls on it because it has about a $40 expected move. I mean, you could do it out of the money, especially if you did it somewhere around 540. You're not going to get as much premium as you would at the money, but it's going to be a little bit higher probability. So for me, I mean, I think Netflix goes lower here.
Downside. Okay, we'll hold you to that. We'll see what happens tonight for Netflix, and we'll maybe revisit the next time you're with us. Airlines, a couple of the bigger ones out this morning, and aftermarket yesterday with AAL and UAL. I mean, it ends up being not much to see here as far as the actual move is concerned, but was there a trade there? And typically, with earnings season and the travel type of names, what are you looking for?
So typically in earnings, what I do in the options market is I look for tickers like UAL or AAL that have a lot of hype around them because you can sell the at-the-money options prior to earnings and buy them back the next day. Because a lot of the time, especially with the airlines, everybody's looking at it, talking about it. What about the Omicron? And so those are the kind of strategies you can utilize. And that would have worked today just because they didn't really move that much. So what I'm looking for here going forward are companies just like this, where they have high volatility because they're being talked about, they're being anticipated, and where you can come in and sell premium. The super wild ones like Amazon and Netflix are going to be a little bit crazy, but you can still do it on a variety of tickers.
Let's expand on that Omicron type of theme here and talk about this dip in general, because it's getting to a point where, I mean, the NASDAQ officially 10% plus to the downside off all-time highs now.
Yes.
A lot of people starting to talk about, okay, when is it going to be that time to maybe, test out the waters here and dip in a toe to see where we're at as far as putting on a larger position. I mean, talk us through here how you're going to approach maybe testing the waters when it comes to some of the growth stocks specifically and tech in general.
So, for me, I like to first reference the daily charts, the NASDAQ and the S&P. We're at some really key levels right now in both charts. In the S&P, we're at a symmetrical pullback that if you measure the pullback that we saw from August into September, and you start with where it started pulling back until now, it's just about the same amount. So usually that's a place where we'll find support in the S&P. Now in the NASDAQ's sitting right now on a very key level, on 15,000. It's sitting at the 200 simple. For me, the S&P has got to hold this area of support, the symmetry area that I mentioned, and the NASDAQ has got to hold 15,000. And what I have to see is the key FANG stocks trading higher. I've got to see Apple. I've got to see Microsoft. I've got to see Amazon, even though it's been a little bit shaky, AMD, NVIDIA. If those stocks cannot get it together, and if these levels cannot hold, we're just going to go lower.
And when it comes to what's going to happen next week, obviously a lot of people expecting the first interest rate hike to come in March, but the first Fed meeting and announcement, obviously, of the new year next week. I mean, we're down more than 10% now on the NASDAQ off the all-time highs. They haven't even started raising interest rates yet. Where do we go overall here?
I mean, I think that the Fed has got to be really careful, and I think they're aware of that, because just one incorrect phrasing when the market is this jittery could very, very easily send it lower. But I think that they are aware of that at this point. So, I mean, for me, what I'm doing right now is I'm sticking with, either short-term trades or mostly in cash, because even though the Fed meeting is somewhat priced in, because of the amount of panic that we're seeing, well, it's not, I wouldn't really classify it as panic yet. I guess I would classify it more as fear. That fear could very quickly shift to panic in any reason. So, and the Fed's a great catalyst for it to do so.
Hear from our audience for you, Danielle. I want to get to a couple anyways, if we can. Sure. First, the Microsoft ATVI deal that was announced early on in the week. Someone was basically just wondering, you're obviously not going to know this pre the announcement to put on some sort of a position, but is there an opportunity on the option side of things once a deal like that is announced?
So, for me, for Microsoft, and I will tell you I'm biased because Microsoft is like one of my favorite stocks to trade, and it's my favorite stock to own. So I say this loving Microsoft. But with an announcement like that, typically what's going to happen is the shares are probably going to trade lower, and they'll probably hang out and consolidate for a while, just because, it's an unknown and it's a big investment, and we don't know if the government's going to shut it down and all these other things. So usually what I do is I will look for key areas of support. In Microsoft, I'm looking at it right now. I mean, 290 is a great area of support. 300 would be a great area of support. I'm going to buy more shares, and I'm also going to be buying longer dated calls. You can buy, leaps a year out in advance, because it'll probably take a little while to shake off all the news right now. But I do think the Activision deal is going to be great for Microsoft. Love it. Great company. Definitely want to own it, and definitely want to trade it to the long side.
Okay, the second one was regarding SoFi. Great points, by the way, for Microsoft there. Someone purchased, looks like February 18th, 2022 options. SoFi hosting the Super Bowl, or I guess the stadium. 3 of my options are in the money. Do I hold?
All right. So with something like that, we pretty much always get a buy the rumor, sell the news type of situation. So I haven't been following up with football lately, but is this a new thing? I'm guessing not, right? Everybody knows that SoFi is going to host the Super Bowl, and it's been a thing for a while.
Assume so as well. I mean, I'm going to bring in Sean here in a couple of seconds to maybe get a better answer for you on that. But I think it's SoFi Stadium that they're referring to. But their position in the money, at least.
So what I would do with that personally is great idea, great trade idea. I like it. It makes sense. But normally what happens in those situations, and I think the Super Bowl is February 13th or so, around there. And the reason why this is important is because what will generally happen is people will buy that rumor, and they'll say, hey, I think this thing is going to trade higher going into the Super Bowl. And then once it hits the Super Bowl, that's when it really trades lower. So you really have to be cognizant of that fact. As far as when you should take profits, you have to look at the technical levels as well, because when you're making a trade like that based off of news, and if they're in the money right now, you're in the money. I don't know if you know what strike they are. But typically with long options, I will look for about a 50 to 75% profit. If I get a 100% profit, that's amazing. I will scale out. And if you get 200%, just don't be greedy. So I don't know how much you're up right now, but I would be very cognizant of the fact that there's key resistance at $16.50 up to $17.30. And just be cognizant of the buy the rumor, sell the news type of situation, because those options can, lose value really quickly.
Hey, Danielle. Yeah, they're not hosting the Super Bowl in SoFi's office buildings or anything like that. It's actually in Los Angeles this year in new SoFi Stadium. So I've been actually saying the same thing, and it's great to hear your advice there too. I think it's definitely, what do they say? Wait a second. Sell the rumor, buy the news, or other way around, buy the rumor, sell the news. That's what it is. I always screw that up. So, but I agree with you. I don't think you got to make or hold anything because of an event is happening at a certain location. So I'm with you on that one. All right, what I want to talk about quickly though was this market, and a lot of us right now are nervous about the NASDAQ. Obviously, we're touching I'm just looking at the cues here. We're touching the 200 period right now, Danielle, and you know, is there something that we should be doing? Like, I am long in my long-term account a hell of a lot of those names that you like. Microsoft, I'm gonna guess you like Google at some of these levels as well. So I'm all over big tech and I like it. I actually don't mind it going forward. But to be honest with you, I am a little bit nervous, as are a lot of our viewers, in a potential, you know, we have next week the rate hikes coming, apparently 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 100 this year expected, depending on who you're talking to. But, you know, what can we do in the option market maybe to sort of protect some of those big cap techs that we have? As far as, I don't know, I mean, I'm going to ask you right now, is it something that you are doing right now in your account to protect against the downside?
So right now, I mean, and I think it's really important that you differentiate between long-term and short-term, right? Because I mean, my long-term investments, same thing. I have AMD, I've got NVIDIA, I've got Microsoft, and you know, yeah, these things are pulling back, but I mean, the NASDAQ's only down 10%. And that's usually the time where I'm saying, okay, this is where I'm really trying to add more positions to my long-term portfolio, between a 10 and 20% down move. And I do think that, I mean, if we fall below this 15,000 level, I mean, it can slide real hard, real fast. So I do think that people should be aware of that. But I think it depends on, you know, what is your long-term game plan? For me, you know, I'm looking for these type of corrections to continue adding in. And as far as like a way to protect your portfolio, I mean, for the tickers, if you have you know, larger positions on them, like I have quite a bit of Apple stock, you can go in there and you can sell covered calls on your stock on a weekly basis to try to just gain some income, especially if it's trading lower. You can go in and also, you know, buy puts and stuff like that. But I mean, for me, honestly, what I really do is I look for these key pullback zones. I look for areas of support and I average in on a regular basis, because for me, like tech, it's not going anywhere. It might be shaky right now, but this is a long-term game.
You and I are way too much alike. So, I mean, I'm the same way. I'm averaging in and I'm talking about, like, I just bought CRM, Salesforce on these dips. Yeah, see there. Oh God, here we go. I got all that. So we bought CRM on dips. I bought Microsoft at 304. I picked up NVIDIA probably a little bit too early at 279. But I'm with you. I believe in all these names. I think moving forward, let's just hope for the best. I mean, fingers crossed on all of that. But the main point is that you're not really taking too much protection against those positions. You sound like you're pretty bullish at some of these levels. Is that incorrect? Like, I think a 200 period is a good time to buy. But one thing that scares me, Danielle, and this is the problem I think with myself as well, is that we say it's down 10%, okay? That's fine, but look at this chart. I mean, we were up on the year, what is it, 20-something%? Even more than that in the NASDAQ. So a 10% move down seems like it might be time to buy, but I can really foresee us like kind of hitting some of these levels even, and I hate to say it, but we could touch 20, maybe 25% lower. And even if we did, we're only going back to May or June right here on the screen. So that's what really does scare me a little bit. But I'm glad that, you know, a mind like yours is kind of buying these dips and not really panicking. And I think in the long term, and you already said it, the horizon is what tends to be super, super key. So I'll ask you one more time, can our viewers hit you up on Twitter and ask you questions? Because we only get you once a week.
Yes, of course. Trader Danielle on Twitter. That's where you can find me.
Good. Trader Danielle and myself following each other, and probably all of us as well. So hit us up on Twitter. We'll forward them over to Danielle. Thank you so much. I'll throw you back to Brendan. I don't know if I'm supposed to end it or not, but Brendan's much more professional than I. So I'll see you on Twitter, Danielle, and I look forward to talking with you every single week.
Yeah, you as well.
Ciao.
Danielle Shay, VP of Options at Simpler Trading. We know you're very busy. We don't want to take up too much of your time. Thank you for the input. As always, we look forward to next week.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.
Have a great week. There we go. Danielle Shay, guys. Lots of great input, lots of great information, including the big one coming up tonight for Netflix.